Welcome to Life Inspired Podcast. This is the podcast you've been searching for. A space where us lifestyle junkies can vocalize our dreams, share our lives' visions, and the journey we've experienced together. I'm your host, Kayla DeLargy, and my whole purpose for these episodes is to connect with others, inspire and support them along their personal journeys, so that way all of you listening can not only feel empowered, but accepted, and that you too belong here and your dreams matter. These episodes are not only meant to bring you something different, but a fresh spin on how the everyday soul is living out their true passions and a life filled of adventure. For the end of each episode, you will not only feel inspired to take action within your own life, but you'll now have the tools, the strategies, and the support to start paving a pathway towards your dreams. Remember, a life inspired stays inspired. What is up, guys, and welcome to this week's Life Inspired episode. This week's co-host is one of the most inspirational foodies that I've ever came across. Not only is she extremely educated in managing a healthy diet, but she's also created so much value in the health and wellness space, I knew that she'd be a perfect fit for this episode. Melissa has really done it all. She was previously Tony Horton from P90X personal chef. She's wrote 2 cookbooks, became a business owner of Karma Chow, and is now a transformational coach helping women end yo-yo dieting so they can end emotional eating and make peace with food. I am so excited for all of you to get to know her, her story, and to listen to her value on this week's episode. So please help me welcome the amazing Melissa Costello. So Melissa, how are you doing? Thank you for coming on today's episode.
I'm so excited to be here, Kayla. Thanks for having me. And I'm doing great today. I'm happy to be here. It's a sunny day in Santa Barbara.
Oh my gosh, are you literally in Santa Barbara? I'm in Ventura,
Yes.
so we're literally
Okay,
so
we're
close.
Yeah, we're close.
It's
Yeah,
awesome.
the sun's doing its thing, trying to break through. So
my
it's
gosh.
been a little foggy lately. So it's nice to see the sun.
I love it. I can understand that. We're in the sunshine state. That's how it's supposed to be.
I know, right? We live here for a reason.
Yes, ma'am. So for our listeners that may have not come across your story before, I would love for you just to give them a little background about kind of what brought you to the place that you're at, and then we'll kind of dive deeper.
Great. Thank you for asking. So, my story really is centered around just having basically body dysmorphia. So growing up, I probably around the age of 12 or 13, when my body started changing, I really started to notice and not like it. And a lot of that was also stemmed from, I think, just seeing, number one, what was happening in the media. And then number two, what was happening also in my household with my family and my brothers and my father. And just hearing a lot of different comments about women's bodies and, Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition, which was like the annual event of the year when I was growing up. And my brothers would literally stand at the mailbox waiting for it, and it was just like, it was the event of the year. And I would even get excited about it. And I would look at these women and see my brothers looking at them and just think, oh my God, they have perfect bodies. They have perfect lives. Right. So I just really made up this decision that I needed to look like that. Right. Like it was just such a skewed way of seeing things. But I really believed that if I look like those women, that I would have this amazing life, because I grew up in a household with an alcoholic father. There was just a lot going on, and I didn't like my life. Like it just didn't feel, I wasn't happy as a kid. It just didn't feel good, And so this is where I put my focus, because I needed to put my focus somewhere. And so it became about body obsession. It became about exercising. It became about controlling food and dieting and doing all of that. And the awesome thing about it was I always was really interested in health and nutrition. Like growing up, I was an athlete. And mind you, I was never overweight growing up. I just had such, like I said, body dysmorphia, just such a skewed idea of how my body looked. And so I did really appreciate health and nutrition. I was, once I completed my athletic career in school, I got into fitness, like in a big way. And I was teaching aerobics back then. And I was doing, I've been a teacher of fitness for many, many years. And that was great. But I also was into over exercising and doing all these things to try to manipulate my body, basically. And then the food piece was, I was just trying to eat healthier because I wanted to feel good. And it was another way I was controlling things, you know? So when I moved to California in the 90s from New Jersey, uh, my whole world changed because I was opened up to this whole world of really healthy, yummy food. And I loved food and I loved to cook. And my father was a cook. When he wasn't drinking, he was cooking, which was actually really cool because I learned a lot from him. Um, but I got really into nutrition and I decided I wanted to get a nutrition certification. I got into yoga and that just really changed my life. And it just put me on this road toward wanting to live a really healthy, clean life, you know, and I stopped drinking alcohol. I became a vegan. So I was doing all these things because it just felt good and it felt right for me. You know, it didn't feel like I was forcing it. It just felt natural. But I also had this kind of dirty little secret going on that I was an emotional eater, you know, and I was using food to comfort myself. I was using food because I had been a yo-yo dieter for so long. I was a big emotional eater. You know, whenever we diet and restrict, we go into that pendulum swing of emotional eating or binge eating. So I was doing a lot of that behind closed doors and not many people knew. And over the course of a certain amount of years, I put on about 30 pounds. And I really hated my body then, like really hated it. And I was fighting against myself constantly. And so like that journey really took me to where I am now. You know, I started to work with people around nutrition and cleansing and all that. But that journey of my emotional eating, my struggles with food, the binge eating, all of that. Now I work with clients in a much deeper way around their behaviors with food, around, you know, like what are their habits? Why are they eating? Like really looking at hidden hungers, all of that stuff. And so that's kind of it in a nutshell. Of course, there's many more layers to it. You know, I worked with a coach. I really did a lot of healing. I got a master's degree in spiritual psychology. That really helped me clear up a lot of this stuff because ultimately I really didn't like myself. And that's what it came down to. You know, I was in a lot of self-loathing and I put my attention on my body because that was all I knew. So that's kind of my story and where I am now. So
It's a powerful story, and I'm so happy to have you on here because I feel like so many of us can relate to exactly what you're feeling, whether we're skinny or we're overweight, we're purple, we're black, we're white, whatever. We have curly hair or straight. Like, we all have issues with the way that we look or how we accept our own appearance. So it's so awesome to have you on here. I'd love to know then how you kind of became aware of your self-control habits, because I think that like that's the biggest thing that I hear in your story that I relate to so much is like the lack of control in your environment caused you to literally want to control every aspect of your life. So how did you realize that?
oh, that's such a great question. You know, one thing that I really appreciate about myself, and I can say this, is that I always knew there was something bigger pulling me. And there was always kind of this sense of dissatisfaction in me. And I'm like, there's something bigger. There's something that I'm missing. And I grew up in like a Christian household that didn't practice religion, but all the guilt came along with it, right? And I grew up fearing God, like fearing the idea of that. And if I walked into a church, I felt like I was going to be struck down, you know? So I was really fearful of religion and fearful of this idea of God. But there was something in me that was pulling me to like just the universe or whatever that higher power is or whatever is bigger than us, you know? And I went on this, like when I was 19, I picked up my first Wayne Dyer book, right? And that was like so many years ago. But there was always something that drew me to personal growth and to self-help books. And when I picked up that book, that just kind of started my whole journey of awareness and really understanding that there is something deeper inside of me. But what that turned into was me seeking all the time and me thinking, what drove that was my need to fix myself, right? So I felt like I was broken, and I felt like I needed to fix myself, and that's what drew me to personal growth or self-help. And it was good, but it also worked against me, because what I realized, and I didn't realize it until I got my master's in social psychology, is that I spent most of my life as a self-improvement project. And when my coach said to me one day, she's like, "What would your life be like if you gave up being a self-improvement project?" I was like, "Oh my gosh, what would I do with my time?" Right? And she's like, "What if you could just accept that you're totally 100% okay as you are right now, and there's nothing to fix?" Right? So like, that was a huge wake-up call for me, because I'm like, wait a minute. I've spent most of my life seeking this thing and trying to fix myself and be this better person. And I believed like I have to be perfect before I get into a relationship. I had all of this stuff going on. So like, I think the awareness was always there, but it was the way I was approaching it that actually worked against me. And it took a lot of just kind of deeper inquiry and turning inward and really learning how to love myself. And I don't just say that in the realm of like, oh, self-love. It was like, it was a journey, and I had to spend a lot of time really cultivating care and respect and love for myself.
Self-love is not pretty. I don't care who
No.
tries to say that it's like rainbows and hearts and sunshine. It's not true. Granted, yes, the place that you come to and the journey that you look back on is totally beautiful, but it is not something that's easy by no means, but it's worth it, right? Like you have experienced for yourself. So I would love to know then, where did you transition to being and helping other people? Because that's huge, right? Like doing it, like you said, doing your own thing. And I love that you mentioned that, because to be honest, Melissa, I think I actually needed to hear that more than you needed to say it, because I feel like I'm like a fix it project all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because
Yeah.
you're like, you always can be a better version of you. But sometimes the version of you you're sitting in is perfectly okay for the place you're in. So thank you for saying that. But how did you transition that?
That's a great question. And I think you're asking into what I'm doing now, right?
Right. Like, how did you decide that, you know what, I may not have this perfect relationship, and that's okay with my health and food, but I'm ready to help other people realize that disconnect?
Yeah. So it started first with, back in 2007, I first started out really focusing mostly on nutrition. So because I was so interested in nutrition, I got my certification in nutrition and wellness coaching. That was kind of how I started. And so I was really coaching people on the basics of healthy eating, plant-based eating, veganism. And I was also private chefing at the time. And I wrote a couple cookbooks and all of that. And over the course of time, as I realized my own struggles with emotional eating and this extra 30 pounds on my body, and I was at the time working for Tony Horton, who created P90X, and him and I are such close friends, and I was his private chef, and I was traveling around the world with him. I still had that little secret of emotional eating going on, and even Tony didn't know it. And I felt like a fraud in a lot of ways. And I was like, gosh, here I am preaching nutrition, but I feel, mind you, I wasn't obese or anything. I was carrying extra 30 pounds. I'm 5'11", so I can kind of get away with it,
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like 5'2", so I'm like, definitely not.
I didn't, to be honest, like I didn't like the way I felt in my body. It felt like when I would do yoga, I felt I couldn't do things like I used to do them. And so it just didn't feel like where my body was meant to live. Like I've been at my natural weight now for over 9 years, and that feels right for me. Like it feels good. It feels empowering. And so like in that journey of working with Tony and coming to terms with my own stuff with emotional eating, and as I'm getting my, master's in spiritual psychology, I'm recognizing like, wow, I want to work with people on a deeper level, and I want to empower women, and I want to get people away from yo-yo dieting and get them off all this crazy madness of the food obsession and the binge eating and all this stuff that's going on, and really teach women how to learn to really love and respect themselves and empower themselves, And I do work with men too, but it's mostly women. I feel like because of our culture and because of the diet mindset culture and all that, women really struggle. And you can walk out the door in any given day and hear a conversation with women, and it's always going to be around, oh, I ate this, I'm bad, or oh, I got to start over tomorrow, or oh, I'm on a diet, or right? It's everywhere. It's everywhere. So I really knew I had a calling, and my business has transitioned multiple times into doing this deeper work. And now I'm actually starting to integrate equine therapy into the work that I do. And I'm going to be doing retreats and all over the world, and I'm partnering with different people. And so that's going to be something else that I'm integrating into my work to just really even go deeper with it.
So, for our listeners who are not aware of what kind of therapy that is, give them a little bit of insight on it, because I feel like that's pretty exciting.
Yes, it's basically working with horses and really using the horse as a guide to. So horses they're number one, they're a prey animal. And the fact that they trust human beings to be around them just shows how unconditional they are and how intuitive they are. And they really allow us into their world in such a way. And they are the perfect definition of presence, and they are always in alignment with themselves. And so the horse can often be, they say sometimes it's like a mirror, but the horse will often show us where we're out of alignment with ourselves. And so doing, it's called equine facilitated learning, what I'm getting trained in. And by doing this kind of dialogue with the horse through body language and through touching and through just being, we can really learn a lot about where we're out of alignment with ourselves.
Man, so incredible how many things there are nowadays to like self-care practices, right? And like
Totally.
alignment
Yeah.
practices, and just it's so amazing. I love that. Where did that stem from? Like, have you always had like a love for horses?
Yes.
Or okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I am a complete like crazy animal person.
Girl, me too.
And I've always been, dogs are my love animal, but horses. So I grew up, my mom was a veterinary technician when we were growing up. So there were always animals in our house, and she was always bringing home strays and baby birds and this and that. There were always, I worked with her in the summers at the animal hospital 1 day a week. And so animals were always a part of my world. But my mom's boss, who was the veterinary owner, his daughter would show horses, and I would go to her horse shows. And that was like my first, interaction with horses. And I just was so mesmerized by them. And then I wanted to take horseback riding lessons, but we couldn't really afford it. So that was, but here and there I would go do like trail rides and stuff like that. And as when I moved to California, there was just more opportunity for me to be around horses, and I really sought it out. And for me, it's not even about riding. It's just being in their presence. Like, they're so powerful. They're so accepting. They're so unconditional. They're such great teachers for us. And so that just really brought me to this place of, wanting to integrate that work. And I know quite a few other people who are doing this work, and I've done some workshops and all of that. And so it just really resonates with me, and I see how powerful it is. So yeah, that's the direction I'm moving in, to really integrate that into retreats and things like that. So people can have really empowering, just in-depth kind of transformation with using the horse as the guide.
I love it. And then, to be honest, that's something that they could take home with them, right? Like,
Totally.
maybe I wouldn't say just find a random horse, because you're not going to really do that, but like go to a stable or go to a barn, or you end up buying one, but that's like a connection that you could create lifelong. So it's not something you just experience and then can't take with you.
Right. And, within the interaction and the way we do the discovery dialogue and all that, we give tools and strategies in those moments. Like, when you're able to really tap into your intuition and feel a shift inside of you, you'll always remember that, right? You'll always have that reference point. And I was talking to a client of mine the other day. I did a horse retreat in Malibu last year, and she had an experience there of really being out of alignment, and the horse just kind of like, he kind of moved away from her. And then when she got back into alignment and dropped in her heart and started crying, he like leaned in and put his head on her, So like, it was just such a beautiful, and I was referencing, we were talking about the other day, I was like, do you remember that feeling? And she was like, oh yeah, I think about it all the time.
Oh my gosh, so
Yeah,
powerful. I
it's
love it.
amazing.
So let's talk a little bit then about your passion projects that you're working on. You say retreats and all this goodies. So let our listeners know what you're up to and what to expect from you.
Yeah, thank you. So right now I really work mostly one-on-one with and coaching women around, really helping them break out of the yo-yo dieting and really empowering them around food and their bodies. Um, and that's really been my passion for a really long time. And because I want to take this work deeper, because community and connection is so important to me, because I feel like we're getting more disconnected even though we're more plugged in. And I want to bring people together to really because when we're in groups together, we get so much support. There's so much transformation. And I want women to connect with one another. And so that's why I'm moving into retreat mode, because I feel like I've done so many retreats myself personally. And I feel like it provides such a beautiful, safe space to have so much powerful transformation. So I'm going to be partnering with different yoga teachers, different other horse people. There's a property in Costa Rica that I'm going to be hosting a retreat at. So keep your eyes open in the next, 6 months to a year moving forward. That's all that's in the works right now. And other than that, just my coaching is really a big passion of mine, and connecting with people one-on-one. I don't really do much online stuff, online courses or anything like that. I dipped my toe in that, but I realized that my people really wanted more connection with me and more connection with other people. So I'm doing more just places, things in my Facebook group where people can connect and get the support and all that. So that's kind of the direction I'm moving in.
I love it. So, with you having a history with retreats, I would love it for you just to share your kind of personal opinion on why it's important for people to go to retreats. Because I've been to
Yeah.
a bunch. I've been to spiritual, business, wealth, real estate, all different kinds. But why are they so important, do you think?
That's such a great question. And I'm so glad you're asking it, because number one, it takes us out of our daily lives, right? Like it literally takes us out of the everyday I have to do list, right? And it puts us in a safe space with other like-minded people where we can create lifelong connection. We can actually get into our hearts, like drop into our deepest truth and our hearts and our authenticity. We don't have to wear the masks. We can drop it all. We can leave it at the door. And that is such a beautiful thing about retreats. And so I used to run yoga retreats in the Bahamas, swimming with wild dolphins.
Wow.
And it's a place I've been many times. And I went last year for my 50th birthday. And it is to see people come into that retreat and to leave, they look like a completely different person. You have such internal transformation. You let go of so much crap that you're carrying around. And a retreat space provides that, so that you can really learn to let go and learn to let yourself be supported. And it gives great tools of how to take into your life, that you can take into your life to really implement. But for me, when I'm in the retreat space, I feel most at home. Like I feel the most connected. We are communal creatures. We're meant to be in communities. We're probably in America and just we're probably the only ones that don't live in communities anymore. We're all like separated. But if you go to other countries, people are living in communities. The grandmother's living in the house downstairs, and everybody lives in villages and takes care of one another. And that's what's also so beautiful about horses, because horses, they all take care of one another. They work in herds. So it's so important to go on retreats. It's a priority. It needs to be a priority for people.
It's literally like 5, 10, 20 years of work in 2, 3
Yes.
a week span. Like that is so worth it just in that time span of being able to literally walk out of that place like a different person. So I'm so glad you said
Totally.
that.
You're immersed. You're immersed. And, it's funny because so back in the 90s, I did this retreat workshop called Life Spring. And It was a personal growth workshop. It's not around anymore. And a lot of people say it was like a cult. Definitely wasn't a cult. But it changed my life. And it was the reason I moved from New Jersey to California. Like it literally, when I was at that retreat, I made the decision. I always wanted to live in California since I was 10 years old. And I made the decision in that retreat. I was in my 20s. I'm going to move to California. And I did it. I did it within that same year. So it was like, that's how much it changed my life. Like my whole trajectory of my life changed. And I've been in California for over 20 years now. And it's just been amazing. Like it so fits me.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's your truth.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is crazy because look at how far across the country it was. So think of like
Right?
how many of us.
I know. I always felt like I didn't belong in New Jersey. I was like, I don't belong here. You know, I'd get the seasonal affective disorder in the winter. I was depressed all the time. I was like, this stinks. I want to get out of here. I want to live outside and be near the beach and, you know, all that. So
I love it. And you did it though. That's like huge. It's like if it's not aligned with you, move. You're not a tree. You don't have roots. You have legs and feet. Pick them up and walk.
And cars.
Yes, that too. If you're going from
go wherever we want.
If you're going East Coast, West Coast, I wouldn't suggest walking. Like we're not doing Forrest Gump style anymore. Oh, this has been amazing. I always ask my co-host at the very end, just because I love to personally know, and I know my listeners do too, but what is something that you do on maybe an everyday basis or just a weekly basis that keeps you feeling inspired? Because obviously we have a lot on our plates. Not everything is perfect or goes as planned, but what helps realign you and make you feel inspired in your days?
Oh gosh, playing beach volleyball.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah, I mean there's so many things I do that ground me and connect me and I do practices, but like playing beach volleyball is the thing that inspires me because I'm 50. I took it up 5 years ago. I love the sport. I'm on the beach. We play 2-on-2. It's the best. Like the ocean is there. The dolphins are there. The community's there. I mean, it is like the best of all worlds right there. It's just incredible. So I feel so lucky and I've gotten so involved in the sport and the AVP is now happening and I watch it online and I go to the events in Manhattan Beach and it's just become this passion of mine that's so inspiring and that I can be 50 years old and be playing this sport that's like, it just feels inspiring to me.
It's inspiring to me. First off, the fact that you even said halfway through this episode that you were 50, I was like, I'm sorry. Did she really just say that? Like, did my mic break up or what? Like, that's not possible. You. But the fact that you're out there playing beach volleyball is just bitchin'. I love that.
It's awesome. I love it.
Awesome. It's so awesome. So thank you so much, Melissa, for sharing with us today. I want to make sure my listeners can connect with you. They can follow you. They can find your retreats. So where can they find you at?
Thank you. Karma Chow, karmachow.com, KARMACHOW.com, all over social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, everywhere, Twitter. And then on Facebook, I have a private group for people who really want to get support. It's called the Food Freedom Breakthrough. So it's a great place for, people who are struggling with food or struggling with their body, struggling with weight loss, and just to have that community and that support. I do a lot of live trainings in there. I give a lot of information. And of course, my website, karmachow.com.
I love it. So I will put all of those links in the show notes so everyone can access them pretty easy. But I appreciate your time. I'm so glad we got connected and we could do this.
This has been so fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So I hope all you listeners feel so inspired. I know I say that after every episode, but it's true. How could you listen to these stories and not feel so inspired after? Melissa has done everything that she's ever dreamed of, right? Maybe she's got a list of things that she wants to still accomplish, but when you look back at your age and your life at 50, what do you want to remember? What do you want to know that you've accomplished and that you've done? I want all of us to go pave our path, to go create our dreams, and to go become the best versions of ourselves. So remember, guys, a life inspired stays inspired. Much love. I personally want to thank you for listening to this episode. If you loved it, please feel free to share it. Share it with a friend, your family, or even on your social media. I truly hope that within these episodes you find value that you can take away and apply to your own life. My whole life purpose is to help raise this universe's consciousness, and it's through this podcast that I'm able to truly help the many. If you love listening in and you're a true life-inspired junkie, please feel free to leave a review on iTunes, as that's the best way for me to get this podcast out to so many others. If you're interested in being featured on this podcast, please submit your request on my website, lifeinspiredpodcast.com. I truly thank you all from the bottom of my heart for listening in each week. It's because of all of you that I get to do these episodes, and I get to host this podcast live. So until another episode, much love.
Sometimes when you're here